This video is brought to you by patreon.com/worsttake. Get access to exclusive live streams and Discord servers, on-screen shoutouts, and early access to some videos when you join now. Help make sure that we can continue to make content like this by supporting the Patreon. Links are in the description down below. The Browns have had so much news break over the last couple of weeks, whether it be moving the stadium or whatever else is going on with the team. And pretty soon here, we're going to be talking about contract extensions for not just Kevin Stefanski, but Andrew Berry. But one of the things I do want to go back on and look at is the roster. How did this roster perform in 2023? I have 5 levels on a tier list that I'm going to rank these players at. I have all pro level, which is self-explanatory, is that I felt like these players played at a all pro level. Now, if they made all pro, if they didn't, I'm not really too concerned with what the Associated Press did. I'm just saying, to me, these players performed at a all pro level. The same thing goes for Pro Bowl level. I'm saying that I feel like these players played at a Pro Bowl level. Then I have exceeded expectations, that these guys exceeded expectations. They're somewhere in between starter, maybe they're a role player. Not everybody in this ranking is the same. Some of these guys had very low expectations coming in, so it was easy for them to exceed. Some of them had very high expectations and exceeded even that, but just didn't play at a Pro Bowl level. So there's that. There's met expectations. Again, this is not everybody who's going to be ranked here is the same. Like, some guys had high expectations that they just met. Some guys had less lofty expectations that they met, and some barely had any expectations but still met those expectations. And then we have underperformed for guys who underperform. So let's start with quarterback. Now, I've done more deep looks into Deshaun Watson this offseason. I would say Deshaun Watson met expectations. I don't think it was a crazy season for him. He only played 5 games, 6 technically, but really 5. He went 4-1. I thought he did a good job managing those games and making plays within those games to win it. I do think the Browns probably advance further in the playoffs with him, but as far as going past that, I don't know. He didn't play long enough. He didn't play more than 3 consecutive games in a row. Injuries are what injuries are. Can't really knock him for being hurt and being unable to play most of the season. But I think, if you pare down what you expected from him in those games individually, I felt like you walked away from the Cincinnati game feeling okay. You walked away from the Tennessee game feeling good. You walked away from the Arizona game feeling great. You walked away from the Baltimore game feeling great. The only game where you feel like he really undersold you performance-wise was the Pittsburgh game. But, one bad performance is going to outweigh what was probably 4 stronger performances there. None of those were anything that exceeded expectations or any of the big number games that you would hope for with Deshaun Watson. So he met expectations. It's kind of hard to grade him, but since he's Deshaun Watson, you guys are going to want him graded. So I'm going to just throw him there on met expectations. DTR felt like he met expectations as well. A rookie being thrown into the fire, had a rough first game, but I thought really bounced back with a solid second game versus Pittsburgh and a strong half of football against Denver before he went out with the concussion. Then Joe Flacco comes in. He doesn't get the spot back. Once he does get to play a little bit, he hurts his ankle. He gets out for the year. So, we didn't get to see much out of DTR, but what we saw felt like met expectations for him. PJ Walker met expectations. I don't know. See, this is where, you know what? I'm going to put PJ at exceeded expectations because nobody expected you to win 2 games with PJ Walker. I think that's fair to say. People can say what they want with him there. People thought that PJ Walker was going to be so bad at quarterback that you could not win 2 games with him. You won 2 games with him. You almost won 3 games with PJ. And PJ made some throws that were critical in those games, right? He made some throws in the 49ers game that were critical to winning that game. He made some throws for sure in that Indianapolis game that were critical to the Browns being able to win that game. Did he carry the Browns to victory? No. None of these quarterbacks carried the team to victory, but that's not really an indictment on the quarterbacks. It's more of a statement of fact about how good the team was around it, that the quarterback's just not going to carry the team to victory no matter what. But I thought, you got most of what you got more than what you expected out of PJ Walker. If I would have told you the Browns would start PJ Walker for 3 games and win 2 of them, you wouldn't believe me. And that is exceeding expectations. I know a lot of people tend to hate on PJ Walker, but I think PJ exceeded expectations. Another quarterback who exceeded expectations, Joe Flacco. Felt like Joe really exceeded expectations. I mean, I don't really have to explain this one. He won comeback player of the year. Threw a lot of interceptions, but we kind of expected the interceptions. Didn't expect the yardage numbers and the touchdown numbers, and he really did a great job with that, helping the Browns get to a playoff spot this year and kind of salvage what was a hard season for the Cleveland Browns. Jerome Ford is an interesting conversation to have because on one hand, you look at his total numbers and you feel like he kind of met expectations, but I'm going to put him in the underperformed category. I expected Jerome Ford to be an 1,000-yard running back, and I believe he ended the season somewhere around 800 yards, which is a disappointment. He also got tackled behind the line of scrimmage a lot. He was very boomer bust for this Cleveland Browns team. I thought he had a chance to be a featured back, but after this year, my expectations are lower for him, and I expect him to be more of a complimentary running back than somebody who could grow in to being a featured running back. I think Kareem Hunt, on the other hand, exceeded expectations. He wasn't even on the team to begin the year, and he ended up being one of the leaders in touchdowns for the Cleveland Browns. So, got to give credit where credit is due. Kareem Hunt stepped in there, played well, definitely exceeded expectations. Pierre Strong met expectations. There were times where Pierre Strong would run the ball and you'd be like, damn, man, I can see exactly why he's a 3rd-round pick. The burst, the acceleration, he looks good. This guy could be something. And then there are times where Pierre Strong ran the ball and you were furious, right? Because he either fumbled or he got hit and his contact balance is terrible and he would fall down almost immediately and you would hope that he could just hang on just a little bit more. Very mixed bag season for Pierre Strong. I understand why he has a little bit of a fan base here in Cleveland, but I would say he met expectations. If you're looking for a 3rd running back, he certainly was a 3rd running back with a little bit of pop, which is kind of what you expected. Amari Cooper, Pro Bowl level play this year. Thought he was excellent this season. I thought he put together one of his best seasons, and his last 2 seasons in Cleveland have quietly been 2 of the best in his career. And he's been super productive, super consistent, playing through injuries almost every week, and he still finds a way to produce for this team. Pro Bowl level talent for sure. I'm 100% certain he should have made the Pro Bowl if he didn't. But yeah, definitely Pro Bowl level talent. Elijah Moore, I think a lot of people are going to be instinctively put him in underperformed, but I don't think he underperformed. I think the expectations for him for some people were a little bit overhyped, right? I never was in that category of people who thought that Elijah Moore should have 1,200 receiving yards or should be the number 1 receiver on this team. I always felt like he would fall between 600, 800 receiving yards. That's kind of where he fell between. I thought he came on strong at the end of the season, and I'm interested to see with more consistent play from the quarterback position where he could be, especially if Deshaun can stay healthy for a long chunk of time, where he could be with Deshaun, because what we saw in training camp was pretty promising. That being said, he met expectations for this year. Let's go with the other wide receiver, Cedric Tillman. Underperformed. I thought Cedric Tillman had a real chance to be productive, and he did. He had the opportunity, a rare opportunity on the Cleveland Browns team that has a ton of talent to have a chance to be productive. But I feel like he really squandered a great opportunity he had this year. He was getting playing time, he was getting targets, but consistently out of position, Cedric Tillman was. And that's not an issue he can have for long. That's something that I hope he clears up before training camp starts, because if we get into OTAs and he's still not in the right spot, there are going to be people, coaches, especially with the new coaching, with the new offensive coordinator, and maybe even a new wide receiver coach. I think that this could be something that could be real trouble for Cedric Tillman, because they're not going to have that much patience for him, or at least the same amount of patience that the front office is willing to have for him. David Bell, I thought met expectations. The expectations weren't high for David, but I thought he had a nice little season here. Really came on strong towards the end. Stepped up when the team wanted to rely on him a little bit more than Cedric Tillman. I think there's a role for David Bell. He's never going to live up to what some people comped him out of when it came to college. People thought he'd be like a Jarvis Landry clone. I don't think he's going to be that. But, I think he's going to be a good, useful wide receiver for the Cleveland Browns going forward. Marquise Goodwin underperformed. I thought there were a lot of moments here for Marquise to really make that big catch that we have expected him, right? Hit on those deep balls. And he just could not come down with them on a consistent basis. Once in a while he would, but most times he had issues coming down with the ball. Marquise Goodwin is a great athlete. He runs super fast, but the issue with Marquise Goodwin has always been not going to finish through contact when it comes to catching the ball. He's always going to look better in training camp than he does in the game, because the physicality element of it really changes how good he is. So that was a player to me I felt like underperformed. James Prochet felt like he met expectations, came on to be the punt returner. Thought he did a solid job as a punt returner. I don't think he got a single target as a wide receiver, which was interesting to see. But yeah, I thought he met expectations. David Njoku, thought he played at an all-pro level this year. David Njoku was amongst one of the best tight ends in the NFL, and really was, on that George Kittle level, not only as a receiver, but as a blocker. I thought he was as impactful as any tight end during the regular season this year. He was as dangerous as any tight end in the regular season with the ball in his hands. He was a dangerous dude as an offensive threat, a dangerous dude as a receiving threat, a dangerous dude as a blocking threat, an all-round complete package tight end. On the other end of the spectrum, I thought that Jordan Atkins really had an underperforming year. Didn't really expect much from him. I thought some people thought he could get between 200 and 500 yards receiving for this team, and that the chemistry with him and Watson would be instant, given that they played with each other in Houston, but it just didn't work for whatever reason. I don't love the way that the Browns used him, but it just never clicked. It never worked for him. I wonder if they're going to keep him past this year, but yeah, it didn't work out for them. Harrison Bryant, I'll put him at met expectations. I don't have high expectations for Harrison Bryant at this point in time, so I'm going to just throw him over here. Jed Wills is an interesting one, because he had a couple of bad games here early in the season, and it was looking like he was in underperformed city. But then he really kind of tightened it up towards the end of the season. But then he got hurt right when he started to tighten it up. So I'm going to just throw him at met expectations. I thought this season could have been better for him. But by the time he went out for the year, Jed was playing at the level you expect Jed to come and play in, right? There was some worries about regression early in the season, but I really think his play at the end of the season was really strong. It's just that he got hurt. Gareon Christian met expectations. I think that's 1,000% fair to put him there. Joe Batonio, he always is probably, I put him at all pro level right there. I thought he was playing at a very high level this year. Ageless wonder at that guard position. Ethan Posick, I put him at a Pro Bowl level. Thought he really stacked on top of what was a good season for him last year. Nick Harris, I would say. I want to put him at exceeded expectations. Now, he didn't play center. He played a lot of fullback this year. And I thought that he was good in that fullback role, really helped Kareem Hunt get into the end zone a ton, was as important as Kareem Hunt was in that role that Kareem Hunt had. So, I'm going to put Nick Harris there for adapting. I thought he did a good job of figuring out a role that he could play on this team and then playing that role to the best of his ability. Wyatt Teller, thought he played at a Pro Bowl level. Wasn't like a all pro Wyatt Teller season, but a pretty damn good Wyatt Teller season. Dewan Jones, I thought he was one of the best rookie tackles in all of football. I think he played at a Pro Bowl level. Look what he did against TJ Watt. Look what he did against a lot of guys on that right side when he was in there, especially in pass pro. He was excellent. Still has some things to learn in run blocking, but definitely played at a very high level. And then there is, I always blank on his name, the backup right tackle, James Hudson. I thought he met expectations. I don't think he was too terrible on that right side. And if he was, it is what it is, man. It is what it is. I don't really have the greatest of expectations for him. I think he is a solid swing tackle. He will be in the NFL for a while, and he might be back with the Browns on a very cheap deal. But yeah, I think he was at expectations so far. Denzel Ward is somebody who definitely had one of his best all-around seasons in a while. I thought Denzel Ward was playing at a high level almost all year. He was great for this team. Another guy who played great for this team, Martin Emerson. Martin Emerson played at a Pro Bowl level. Not all pro just yet. Still had some issues getting beat long. Still got picked on in a couple of games, but really did play at a high level. Made some big plays when plays needed to be made. And another guy that I felt like played at a level just below that, but exceeded expectations, is a guy who's getting a lot of flack. Greg Newsome. I thought Greg Newsome played at a high level this year. He made some huge plays this season. I mean, one of your biggest play of the year he made, the pick six that helped you beat Baltimore. So yeah, Greg Newsome, I think people are trying to paint it as if he had a bad season or even a disappointing season. It was not that. He didn't have as good as a season as Denzel Ward or Martin Emerson, but he had a hell of a season himself. And I don't love that people are trying to paint it as if he was horrible when nobody in that secondary was horrible. Because go look at that secondary's numbers throughout the year. They dominated most games that they played in. So for people to paint the picture as if Greg Newsome was terrible or use how they feel about how he played in the last game of the season and try to repaint the whole season on that, I feel like is wrong. He had a hell of a season himself. Obviously, Denzel and Martin had better seasons than him, but Greg was a hell of a dude this year too. So, I don't think people should really sleep on him either. Cam Mitchell came in, played well. I would say he is very close to exceeding expectations, but he met them. He met expectations. Khalif Halizi came in, played some good football. Thought he met expectations. Mike Ford came in. Look, when he was out there at special teams, he was meeting expectations. Now, if you ask him to be slot corner, that's a problem. He's going to get beat, but that's not the expectation that I had for Mike Ford, is to be a good outside corner. For me, it was to be a good special teamer. So I think Mike Ford met expectations. I really think Grant Delpit was playing at all pro level. Like, I really do. He was one of the most impactful players on the Cleveland Browns. And there were times where he was the best player on the field with the team that has Myles Garrett on it, and Myles Garrett on defensive. So all pro level performance, I think, from Grant Delpit. Really impressive from him. Juan Thornhill, I would say slightly underperformed. I think he did not make as many plays as he had hoped. He was not as healthy as he had hoped, which is what it is. It's football. I'm not really going to hold that against him. But just the impact. You never felt his presence on a game on the defensive side. It just wasn't what you had hoped. I think he's going to have a better season next year, but for this year, I have to say he underperformed. Ronnie McLeod, I thought he met expectations. I thought DeAnthony Bell and Ronnie Hickman exceeded expectations at that safety position. Given that there were barely any expectations for them this year, they really came out, played well when all those injuries hit the safety room. And I thought that they were spectacular in that front. JOK, I thought he played at an all-pro level. Go look at his linebacker numbers. They're as good as anybody in the NFL. You can compare it to Roquan Smith. You can compare it to Patrick Queen. You can compare it to Fred Warner. He stands up there. His resume stands up there. He was one of the best linebackers in all of football, an absolute playmaker, a hellraiser on the line of scrimmage with 20 TFLs. Roquan Smith had 5. 20 TFLs for JOK. By the way, average depth of tackle of less than 2 yards. Roquan's average depth of tackle of over 4. So real impactful, making most of his tackles close to the line of scrimmage. Big play guy. He's a playmaker at that linebacker position. When some guys are stat accumulators, when some guys are, play slowers, they slow down a play, but they don't really make plays. Like certain people on the Baltimore Ravens. JOK was a playmaker for sure. Anthony Walker, to me, met expectations, but barely. Not JOK. Sione Takitaki exceeded expectations. Tony Fields met expectations. Jordan K met expectations. Diabite met expectations. Let's get to the edges now. Myles Garrett. It goes without saying, best player on the team, all pro level, defensive player of the year, best defensive player in all of football, deserves every bit of love and respect that he's getting right now. He is one of the best. Unfortunately for Za'Darius, I do have to throw him in underperformed. Not only was the sack total a little low, I thought, especially towards the end of the season, the pressure rate wasn't what he wanted. Well, not towards the end. It was like in that middle part of the season, the pressure rate wasn't where he wanted it to be. I thought he left a lot on the table here this season. Got a lot of pressures, had a lot of missed tackles, a lot of missed sacks, a lot of missed opportunities for the Za'Darius. But I do, even though he underperformed, I do want the Browns to re-sign him because I think next year he's due up for a big season. I think he just had an off one. Sometimes you have an off season, and I think that he's going to be ready to play at a high level next year. Obo Okoronkwo, thought he played at a high level, given what he was expected to do, and I think he even exceeded it. Really excited about what he can do next year. I thought Alex Wright, same thing, exceeded expectations. Isaiah McGuire didn't really play that much this year, but I thought he met expectations when he was out there. Dalvin Tomlinson, I would say he exceeded expectations, had a couple multi-sack games. When he was dominating, it was really easy to see. And when you see some of the Browns' most dominant defensive performances, Dalvin Tomlinson usually has a part of that. Now, it wasn't Pro Bowl level because it wasn't consistent enough for me to be Pro Bowl level, but it was still at a very high level for him. Jordan Elliott, I thought he exceeded expectations for sure. My expectations for him were very low, and he ended up playing much better than I expected. Same thing can be said for Shelby Harris, who I thought played well, and same thing can be said for Maurice Hurst, who I thought played really well. I'm going to throw Siaki Ika and met expectations. They didn't really get to play much, is what it is. I thought that the punter, Corey Bojorquez, exceeded expectations, really had a solid year. Great distance on his punts, good hang time. Sometimes he had an issue with his punts where he would not get enough air underneath him, and then the team wouldn't be able to cover, even though he's getting great distance, or sometimes he would outkick his coverage. Really had a nice balance of that, really had a good grip on field position. Still could get better at squeezing punts. Like there are times where the Browns are trying to force a short field, plus in the plus 50 part of the field, and he continues to get touchback at the touchback. It's one of the toughest things for punters to do, but that's an area where he can improve. If he does that consistently, then he would be a Pro Bowl level punter. And then Dustin Hopkins, I thought he was a Pro Bowl level kicker this year. The amount of 50-plus yard kicks that he made, the amount of leaning on him that this team did at the beginning of the season, and he just continued to show up and show up and show up for. Look, the Browns aren't 11-5 without Dustin Hopkins. He deserves every bit of love and respect that he's getting right now. And this is my roster rankings for 2023. This is where I feel like players sat. Just because a player isn't exceeded expectations and the player isn't met expectations doesn't mean that I think that that player was better. But if we're talking about where my expectations were for that player, and they vary for each guy, I'm just putting them in that category. So that's where I am with these guys. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Y'all have a great day. Have an even better night. Peace.